Imagine, you're standing at a busy intersection. Everyone is rushing by, colliding with one another, yet no one truly sees the other. In this world, it seems you've never been given a moment to stop. At this bustling crossroads, you start asking yourself, what am I really chasing? Am I living for others' expectations, or am I living my true self? In this city, who truly owns their life? Are you truly living for yourself? Are you living for yourself, or simply conforming to society, striving for success defined by others? These questions may seem simple, but they hide deep meaning in your life. Have you ever paused for a moment and realized that behind your constant compliance lies deep anxiety and confusion? Have you begun to feel that, by always conforming, you've wandered further from your inner voice? When you stop conforming to the world will start conforming to you. This statement is not just a philosophical concept, it's the beginning of your awakening. True freedom is not about being able to do anything you want, but about choosing not to conform to others' expectations. You choose to be yourself, to confront the real you deep within. But why is it so difficult for us to do this? When you ask yourself, am I living within a framework defined by others, or am I living my authentic self, you realize that conformity has become your default. You keep burying your desires and needs, constantly submitting to the standards, expectations, and scrutiny of others. Have you ever caught yourself in a moment when you were seeking validation from others at the cost of your own desires? But real transformation doesn't come from external adjustments. It starts with an inner awakening. When you stop conforming to the world, you'll find the true space that belongs to you. Are you willing, in this moment, to break free from others' expectations and face your truest self? This question could be one of the most important decisions of your life. It determines whether you can achieve freedom from within, liberating yourself from internal and external constraints. And the answer will begin to unfold the moment you choose to confront solitude, the moment you dare to walk your own path. Have you ever wondered why we are so afraid to be ourselves? Why do we constantly try to conform to others, to meet society's standards, instead of pursuing our true inner desires? When you begin to think deeply about it, you will realize that there are profound psychological mechanisms and philosophical roots at play. The rules of society have been deeply implanted in our hearts. From a young age, we are taught to meet the expectations of the outside world, whether from our parents, teachers, or society at large. We are taught how to become acceptable people, how to fit into society. These standards are not inherently wrong, they help us establish basic social connections and ensure our survival within a group. However, when these rules become the chains of your life, when you stop questioning these standards, problems arise. You begin to conform to external expectations and ignore your own inner needs and desires. Carl Jung, in his psychological theory, spoke about the concept of the shadow self. The shadow self refers to the parts of our unconscious mind that are repressed, the emotions, desires, behaviors, and thoughts that we are unwilling to confront. Everyone has their own shadow, and when we are afraid to be ourselves, afraid to face the real us, we repress these parts into our subconscious. These repressed emotions and desires slowly form the masks we wear, which emerge when we interact with others. In everyday life, we wear these masks almost constantly. To fit in with others, we act polite, perfect, and rational, but deep inside, we are full of unexpressed emotions and unmet needs. This split from our true selves is the source of our suffering. Have you ever felt, in a moment of interaction, that you were not really yourself? Have you ever felt, on social media or in a group, that you were forced to play a role and forgotten your true thoughts and feelings? This inner conflict is the root reason why we cannot stop conforming to the world. The freedom you seek, the authenticity you crave, has long been imprisoned by the rules of society and the judgment of others. You fear independence, fear making choices that differ from the crowd, because you fear rejection and the loss of social approval. Philosophically, Sartre mentioned, existence precedes essence, which means that we are not defined by the eyes of others, but by our own choices and actions in life. Yet, we continue to play roles given to us by others. We define ourselves through external validation, ignoring the true voice within. This disconnect between inner and outer selves is one of the greatest dilemmas of modern life. You fear solitude, fear alienation, and even fear confronting your own inner self, so you choose to conform to the demands of the world. However, as Nietzsche said, becoming yourself is the hardest path, but it is the only path worth walking. True freedom is not the absence of external constraints but the liberation of the inner self, the true recognition and choice of who you really are. The first step you need to take is to return to your inner self. Stop blindly following the rules of the world, stop conforming to societal expectations, and begin to listen to your true inner voice. When you start being yourself, you will find that everything around you starts to change too. You are no longer the one who is bound, but the one who chooses their own path and lives a life that belongs to them. You may have never realized that your life, your choices, are being influenced by invisible forces. When you choose to conform to the expectations of the world, it is not just for the sake of gaining approval from others. You think you're choosing freely, but in reality, your choices have already been controlled by external pressures and inner fears. This invisible force is quietly shaping the trajectory of your life. You think you're choosing your career, your friends, your partner, but behind these choices, there are deeper driving forces. Society's rules, cultural conditioning, parental expectations, and peer judgments, these invisible forces have been deeply planted in your subconscious, affecting every decision you make. For example, you choose a career not because you truly love it, but because you believe it will bring you societal approval and financial security. You choose a partner not because you feel genuine love, but because this person meets the societal standards of an ideal partner. Many of the decisions you make seem to provide short-term comfort and security, but you've never truly asked yourself, why am I making these choices? Do they truly represent me? These invisible pressures cause you to gradually lose connection with your true self. You respond to external expectations but never listen to the call of your own heart. You live for others' evaluations and forget your own voice. You even forget that you have the right to choose a different life, to choose your own path. And these invisible consequences go far beyond your current choices. Over time, these subtle influences accumulate, leading to outcomes you cannot avoid. You might suddenly realize, at some point, that the path you are on is not the path you wanted to take, but the trajectory shaped by society, culture, and the values of others. You might realize that your life has been controlled by others' expectations and the judgments of the world. Everything in your life seems natural, but in reality, it is the product of invisible constraints. When you conform to the world offers you short-term rewards and validation, but your true inner needs remain unmet. This constant masking causes you to lose yourself and become more and more lost. You may become anxious, empty, and even unable to sense your true desires. These effects are not limited to the individual level. When the majority of people live within the framework of external expectations, the structure of society as a whole begins to distort. A society filled with conformity and competition no longer encourages true personal choices or inner freedom, but instead reinforces the oppression of external standards. In this environment, most people no longer dare to be themselves. They submit to the rules of society and become machines, shaped by external values. This is the core issue: you choose to conform to the world and ultimately lose your true self. The freedom you seek is exactly what you lose when you keep conforming. You lose your inner voice and your true understanding of yourself. Until one day, you suddenly realize that you can no longer hear that voice that belongs to you, and you can no longer find that you, who is truly yours. Now, you stand at an important crossroads. You realize that continuing to conform to the expectations of the world will only push you down an increasingly narrow path, and your inner self can no longer tolerate this suppression. You feel as if you are trapped, with anxiety, emptiness, and loneliness bubbling to the surface. You begin to wonder if you continue down this path, you will lose yourself in other people's world and no longer find a life trajectory that truly belongs to you. So, how do you break free from this cage? How do you escape the standards of others and find a space of freedom that truly belongs to you? This is an inner rebellion, an awakening of self-awareness. The first step is to dare to face your true feelings, rather than continuing to ignore the call of your heart. You may fear this awakening, fear solitude, fear that others will not understand you. But it is this very fear that holds the key to unlocking your freedom. Fear, in fact, is your breakthrough to overcoming self-imposed limitations. You must admit that you have been living in a mask, suppressing your true self to conform to external expectations. Every choice you make has not come from your true self, but from external standards. When you begin to face these masks and the inner fears you've been unwilling to acknowledge, you will realize that your life starts to feel real. True freedom is not about avoiding responsibility, it is about taking responsibility for your choices. You choose to face yourself, choose to break free from external constraints, and choose to walk a path you've never walked before. This path is not easy, it is filled with uncertainty and challenges, but it is the only path you can choose. You no longer live for others, you begin to live for yourself. You may feel alone, misunderstood, but it is this very solitude that marks your self-awakening. You begin to enjoy solitude, no longer relying on others' judgments to determine your worth. You learn to converse with yourself and listen to the true voice within. This is a process that takes time, but with each step, you will feel that inner freedom expanding. And this freedom will give you immense power. You begin to realize that your choices have the power to change the world. You are no longer a helpless individual swayed by external forces, you are someone who can decide their own fate. You no longer fear losing external validation because you have found a stronger validation, your validation of yourself. And this validation is where your true freedom lies. You will find that when you stop conforming to the world starts to come closer to you. This does not mean that the world will immediately become perfect, but as you start to live your authentic self, the world will open up more possibilities for you. Your relationships, career development, and life situation will start to change subtly. These changes may not be obvious, but they are filled with inner power. You will begin to attract people who truly resonate with you, rather than those who force you to conform to their standards. You will gain more choices, no longer constrained by external judgment and pressure. In the end, you will realize that you have not been isolated, on the contrary, you have found more souls who resonate with you. In your journey to live your true path, you have not only gained freedom but also found your own world. True freedom lies in choosing yourself. You might have thought that freedom means doing anything without constraints, breaking free from restrictions. You might have thought that escaping constraints and responsibility is the path to freedom. But the truth is, true freedom is not like that. True freedom comes from self-acceptance, from daring to choose your own path, from facing solitude, and from listening to the voice within. Your life becomes truly free when you start choosing yourself. This is not an easy road. It's full of challenges, pain, and confusion. You will face solitude, you will encounter misunderstanding, criticism, and pressure. But it is these trials that form the crucible of your awakening. You are not trapped by society, you are trapped by your own beliefs. You are bound by the rules and expectations of society, and these rules and expectations are ones you accepted and chose at some point. When you start questioning these rules, you will realize that the true dilemma does not come from the outside world but from your own ingrained views and cognitive patterns. Thus, the final awakening is about reclaiming the sovereignty of your life. You will realize that true freedom is not the absence of fear but the courage to face your fears and uncertainties. Freedom is not about being unrestrained but about choosing the solitary path, following the life your heart truly desires. Philosopher Nietzsche once said, "You must become who you are meant to be." This means that your life only gains meaning when you truly choose yourself. Only when you start letting go of others' expectations, rejecting external standards, and listening to the voice inside you, will you be able to live a life that truly belongs to you. What you've never realized is that you've been limiting yourself. You thought you couldn't change, that you couldn't break free from society's framework, but this is driven by your inner fears and anxieties. When you begin to face these fears and challenge the limitations you've set for yourself, you will realize that your world will change dramatically. Freedom is not about avoiding responsibility. Many people mistakenly think that freedom means avoiding responsibility. They choose to avoid pain, challenges, and the self-imposed demands and responsibilities. However, true freedom comes from accepting responsibility, from courageously owning your choices. You choose solitude not because you're avoiding others but because you're willing to face the consequences of your choices, willing to take responsibility for your life. You begin to live for yourself, choosing your own path. The power of this choice is something you've never experienced before. It makes you feel incredibly strong, as if you have the ability to change everything. True freedom is not doing as you please, it is choosing the path that truly belongs to you, choosing the self that truly belongs to you. You will realize that the painful experiences you once endured, the moments that made you lost, confused, or hesitant, were all pushing you toward your true self. All these pains and challenges will become the source of your self-growth, helping you find your light in the darkness, helping you find your strength in solitude. The final awakening is when, in the deepest solitude, you find your truest self. It is no longer a distant dream, but your real-life experience. When you dare to face solitude, dare to face the fear deep within you, you will discover that the meaning of life unfolds in this awakening. You are no longer the image others see, you are yourself, a person who dares to choose, who dares to break through. From this moment on, you will no longer follow others' expectations, but will live the life that belongs to you. You will possess endless strength because you chose to be yourself.